morning. This is just so bizarre. You need to go away.
My side hurts.
I'm losing my shade. You need to stop. Good morning. Welcome to 90% Knitting. This is episode 343. I'm Lisa, also known as Fiber Nymph, and I gotta just tell you, this is a super weird setup. Because my husband is working in the porch room, literally like 10 feet behind me. Like, I don't know if you can see him, but he's there. So yeah, he's there. I don't know if he can hear me or not now. He closed the window. Emma was in the kitchen a minute ago, and our kitchen window's right there. She said she went to her room. Hopefully she did, because I might talk about things that she can't hear. Anyway, I feel like I'm in a fishbowl. But it's a beautiful day, and I thought I would come out to the deck and sit here with the bird feeders in the background. That's why I'm kind of sitting a little off center, so that hopefully you can see the fun birdie friends when they come flip by. And I'm losing my shade because this has taken me so long to like get set up here. The sun's going to be coming over the top of the trees and onto the deck here any moment. So we're going to see how this goes. But I had time this morning. It's what day is it? Today's Monday, August 10th. So happy Monday, August 10th to you. It's a beautiful morning. It's a little cool yet before the sun hits, so I'm enjoying that. And yeah, the sounds of nature. And of course, anytime I record outside, you always end up hearing the sounds of traffic too, because even though we live up in the mountains and out in the country, our road is right out front and people just fly up and down it. So anyway, how are you doing? I hope you are well, or at least hanging in there with everything going on in life. How's your summer? Are you enjoying this last part of summer? I am. I gotta tell you, I'm out on the deck, obviously, and this is the first time I'm recording out here on the new deck. I'm basically living out here as much as I possibly can. I love it so, so, so much. I keep telling my husband this every opportunity. I'm probably sounding like a broken record. I'm just like, I love this deck. Thank you so much for rebuilding the deck, because it's just perfect. We eat dinner out here almost every night. I have been coming out here and like sitting in the morning when it's nice and cool. I work out here anytime I can, obviously not when I'm dying, but it's just amazing. Love it. It's like a room outside, especially whenever we open the sunsetter awning, which I think that's probably part of their promotional tagline thing, isn't it? Like, create an outside room. I don't know. Anyway, glad you're here with me today. I am full of energy for having not slept very well last night. You know, I mentioned on the last podcast I was dealing with health stuff, and I'm on a couple new medications, one of which is prednisone. I'm on a 4-week course of prednisone, and if any of you have ever taken prednisone, you know it's kind of a crazy drug. It does crazy stuff to you, aside from what it's actually meant to do. One of the side effects for me ends up being insomnia, and I went to bed last night and I just laid there. My eyes were wide open and my brain was going 1,000 miles an hour. It was crazy. So I got up and I knit for a while and had an adult beverage. Finally went back to bed around midnight. It was not enough sleep though. Anyway, let's get started. I do actually have show notes today, and I printed them out since I didn't want to drag my laptop out here. Basically, I do have some crafting. My mojo's coming back. That's a good thing, right? My mojo seems to be making a comeback. So I've got some crafty things to show you. I have very little other than that. I've got some crafty things to show you and not a whole lot else. I've got a bunch of 10% I'll talk to you about. And then I do have some shop news, including an update that's going to happen this coming Saturday, which will be the 15th at 10 a.m. Yes. So that is what is going to be happening here as I talk to you. So let us begin. I actually have some finished objects to share. One of which is this, well, they were not exciting to knit, but I'm happy with them now that they're done, these little Shortie Socks. I think I had the first one done the last time I showed it to you, and I was working on the second, so I finally got the second one finished. These were knit using 2 leftover partial balls that I had from, I think it was the 2018 holiday countdown sets that I did. They were both variegated, so this greenish one is called Gilded Moss, and then the other one that I used for the heel, this was a variegated version of Don't Tell 'Em It's a Rainbow. And so I used Gilded Moss for the heels and the toes, Don't Tell 'Em It's a Rainbow for the, for the cuffs and the toes, Don't Tell 'Em It's a Rainbow for the heels, and then I micro striped. I just alternated every other round the 2 colors, except when I forgot. Then there might be 2 rounds of one color, but in general, that's how I did it. And they were, I gotta say, they were boring to knit because they're not bright colors. You know I love my bright colors, but they were fun to knit. Like doing that micro striping, I've never done socks that way before, like where I was manually striping every other round, and that was actually kind of fun. But the colors were not fun to just sit and knit because they were dark and kind of boring. But now that they're done, I really, really like them. And I think they're going to be great socks to wear around the house. 'Cause, you know, I love my Shortie Socks. So anyway, those are finished, and I did not start any more socks yet. I need to start another pair. I need to start a pair because we're going away on a trip, which I will talk to you about a little later. And I need to take a pair of socks to work on while we're away. It'll be a socially distanced trip, but it'll be a trip. The only vacation we're going to get this year. Okay, so there was that. Another finished object I am going to insert pictures of here because I don't actually have it out here with me. It's in my daughter's room somewhere. Is a little crocheted bralette kind of top that I made for her. She had requested some really cute kind of hippy-dippy sort of crocheted tops this summer, and so I think I talked about this before. We got on Ravelry and we looked at patterns, and so we picked out a few patterns, and then we went on webs and picked out yarn because I didn't want to make them out of wool for her, and I don't really have a whole lot of appropriate cotton or other, you know, cellulose-based fiber yarns. So this was called the Basic Bralette. The designer is Regina Weiss, and it turned out super cute. The yarn that I used was called Hawley, Hawley, from Valley Yarns, which this is a 50% cotton, 30% silk, 20% nylon blend. It was very nice to work with. It was not hard on my hands. Crocheting is a little different than knitting anyway with the tension, and I think it's hard. It would probably be not harder, but like I would feel it more if I was knitting with this yarn than I was when I was crocheting with it. But it's got a really nice texture, and I'm gonna assume it's from the silk and the nylon in it. It's not at all rough, like it doesn't feel like a dishcloth cotton by any stretch. And it's you know, got that kind of muted sheen to it. I really like it, and it turned out super cute in the top. The pattern was very well written. I'm a very new crocheter, as you know, and so I need all the help I can get. She has tons and tons of pictures of what you're doing throughout the pattern, and it is a paid-for pattern. I don't remember how much it is, but anyway, yeah, lots of pictures, tutorial kind of style. I had no problems following it and getting it to work. When I purchased the yarn, I thought I was going to probably need 2 balls, but I thought, oh, that doesn't seem like very much because they're just little 50-gram balls. So at 135 yards, so I bought 3. I literally used a single ball of yarn for that top. That's crazy, isn't it? I broke into the second one only because when I was knitting, you start, or crocheting, you start by making those triangular cups. That's what you start with. And I made the first one, then I made the second one, but the second one and the first one did not match in size. I don't know what I did wrong. So I knew I had more than enough yarn, so I just crocheted a third one. And the first and the third did match. So that second one I did something wrong. But rather than rip the second one out, I just left it. We've been basically putting on cats' heads, sort of like as a little head covering occasionally to see who would tolerate it. So far, Babette is the winner. She doesn't seem to mind. But anyway, so yeah, had I not had to make that third triangle, I would have completely gotten that whole bralette out of 1 ball of yarn. That's incredibly crazy that you can get a garment that someone can actually wear in public with 135 yards, who's not an infant. But my daughter is very tall, but she's very, very slender, as you could see in those pictures. So whatever. It's really cute the way it laces up in the back and kind of threads down through those little holes in the back. And it did take a little playing around trying to figure out the best way to lace it in the back so that it wouldn't continuously slide and get loose on her, but we finally figured it out. It does require wearing those little, like those petal, like nipple covers underneath, because even though I tried to make sure I was crocheting it as tightly as possible, there's still some gaps, and it was just a little too risque. So she did get some of those, and it's fine. It looks great. So I'm really happy with that. It was fun. It literally took me 1.5 Lord of the Rings movies, extended version, to make. So that's like, what, about 4.5 hours? We watched 2 towers in the first half of Return of the King, and I crocheted that during that time. So not bad. I have a couple other ones that I have yarn for, and I think the next one up is actually going to be another Regina Weiss pattern. It's called the Mehndi, what is it? Mehndi something. Mehndi Halter top, also by Regina Weiss. And I have some Barocco remix that I'm going to be using for that. So hopefully I will get that done in the next week or so, because I'd like to have it for her birthday, which is on the 18th. We'll see how that goes. So that is my other finished object. Actually, no, it's not my only other finished object. I've got like a whole bunch of finished objects, some of which I did show you last time, but they weren't completely finished because they didn't have their buttons and they didn't have their fringe trimmed, and that is my funky Fringe-y Cowls that I'm designing. So I did put the buttons on them, and I did trim the fringe now. So here's the first one that you saw. So the fringe is trimmed, and here's the button. And because I have written up the pattern, it's with my tech editor right now, and as soon as I get it back from her, then I'll be needing some test knitters, so I'll talk to you about that in a second. But anyway, there are 3 different closure options for the button, one of which is just having a little loop that you can put over the button. So I did a different closure option on each of these. I guess I could put it on and show you. I just think they're so much fun. And, you know, you can wear it open without closing it. And if you don't want the button to be in the front, you can just wing it around to the back and have the fringe on the other side. Or you can do the closure. This one, the button is not smooth. It's this pretty little flowered button, so it's a little more difficult to get the little loop on. The sun is now coming over into my face. Sorry. Let's see. There. So that's what that looks like when it's closed. Isn't it fun? I just love it. I swear I want to just keep making these. Everybody I know may be getting these for Christmas this year because I can't stop making them. So, and I can't get this one unbuttoned, apparently. Oh, for heaven's sakes, Lisa. Alright, there we go. So that was the first one. And again, I knit these predominantly with DK weight leftovers. A couple of them have maybe a little bit of worsted weight thrown into, but it's mostly my Beguiled and my Bona Fide and Beguiled DK weight bases. So that's that one. That was a leftovers one. This was a actually they're all leftovers. Some just have more leftovers than others. So this greenish one had a whole bunch of greens and golds and neutrals. I'm not going to bother buttoning this one, but there's the button on that one. And this one I did an I-cord closure, which I just did the I-cord and then fixed it to the top of the cowl, so it sort of sits inside and you don't really see it when you're not having it closed. I guess I can close it. This one's easier to close. The I-cord's easier. I like statement buttons. You could do a really tiny button so that it's not as visible, but I kind of like statements. So there's that one. And then last time, remember I told you I had another one on the go, but I didn't think I was going to finish it because I didn't really like how it was turning out. Well, I changed my mind, and I did finish it, but I did it with 3 different yarns. So these were also leftovers. So I've got Merlot and soft black. The sun is really shining now. And then that's in Bona Fide, and then the one in between was some leftovers. This was my Dyer's Favorite Colors that I think I did in 2018 as my anniversary colorway, the speckled version of it. So that's on Beguiled. So, and I really like the button. I had this fun button that I think coordinates really well having that black yarn in there. And I cut the fringe a little shorter on this one. I personally am a fan more of the longer fringe. Sorry, I'm going to have to turn here and try to mitigate that sunlight. Hi, got up and close in your face. Okay, so yeah, I like the longer fringe. I think the shorter fringe is okay, but personal preference, I like the longer fringe. This closure, I did a chain, just a crochet chain closure, and attached it again to the top of the edge of the cowl. So yeah, super simple. And then for the pattern, I decided to try something different. I've never done this with any of my patterns before. I wanted to record a tutorial video on how to make the pattern or how to make the cowl. Not that it's a difficult cowl to make, but there was some things that I thought could benefit from, you know, illustrating it visually in a video. So I did a video, and so of course to do that I had to do yet another cowl. This one is completely made out of Beguiled. This is all sparkly, and these are yarns that I had left over from my Soldatna. So they're Ravelry and Sand and Silver Gray. So and these are all done on US 6 needles. This one I left the fringe long, and I kind of cut it like a little asymmetrically, just for something different. So I've got that, and this one also has an I-cord loop. I did it differently though. Instead of affixing it to the top, I actually made the loop and threaded it under this first bunch of fringe, which is essentially how I did that very first one where it was just a loop of yarn. But by doing that, if you're not wearing it closed, you can pull the loop onto the inside, and it just sort of sits there and you don't see it. But then if you want to close it, you can pull it out to the outside and button it. I will say the I-cord closures work better with big chunky buttons just because the I-cord is chunky. You could do it I-cord with like a coordinating fingering weight yarn and have a lighter weight I-cord that would work with a smaller button, but I find it better with the heavier buttons. So anyway, that's my other one. I want to do one that's twice as long and maybe not have a button on it. So I'm going to be doing one of those next. And then I'd also like to try one using 2 strands of fingering weight held double for the garter ridges, and see how that goes too. So it can just add a lot of options to the pattern. The other thing I'll point out is these first 2 that I made, whoops, dropped it. I chose to use the mixed up side of the garter stitch as the right side, the public side. This is the neater, like the garter ridges are all the same color on this side, but I chose that to be the inside on these. This is actually how I originally conceived this when I was doing it. I wanted this to be the outside. But then I thought, well, not everybody likes that side. So these 2 I did the other way, having the neat side as the outside. And I think when I talked to you about it last time too, I mentioned, oh, you could just have the fringe like hanging out the bottom, which you could, but I figured out how to do it so that you can have the fringe popped through to this side, and it still works. So that's yet another option for you. So that's how that one is, and that's how that one is. So those are the cowls. Again, it's the patterns written, it's with my tech editor. Yeah, once I get it back from the tech editor, I will need some test knitters. So if you would like to test knit one of these funky fringy cowls, please email me, fibernymph@gmail.com. That would be the best way to get a hold of me and let me know that. Essentially, you need the equivalent of a full skein of DK weight yarn. You don't have to use just one skein. You can, again, this was conceived of to use leftovers, and so if you have a bunch of leftover DK weight yarn, perfect. If you do have like one special variegated skein, you can do that because the construction is the same regardless of how many yarns you're using. As long as you follow the directions, you're going to get that fringe that is created as you go. There are no ends to weave in on this cowl except your cast on tail and your bind off tail, and you're only weaving those in to secure them. You're not even cutting them. They're just going to be part of the fringe. So it's fun. I'm so happy with this pattern. I can't wait to have it published. To that end, if you remember, I talked about I put together those DK weight semi-solid sets that I'm going to put in my shop eventually. My impetus for dyeing those was when I did that half granny square shawl. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold off putting those in the shop until this pattern is ready to be published, because those sets will be perfect for these cowls if you don't have DK weight leftovers. I'm going to package them in sets of 6 minis. They're quarter skeins, so it'll be 6 quarter skeins in a package, and you can just make cowls to your heart's content. So that's why those have not been in the shop yet. I'm going to hold off till the pattern's ready to go. So I think that's everything I wanted to tell you about the cowls. Yeah, and I think that's probably everything with my knitting and crafting and crocheting. Like I said, on deck I have another crocheted top I want to make, more cowls because that seems to be what I want to knit these days. I have some other crafty projects. I showed you those little wooden rune discs that I made last time. I still need to sew a pouch to put those in, so that needs to happen within the next week or so. And I'm also going to be making, see, I hope she's not out here where she can hear. And I don't remember if I mentioned this or not last time. I'm going to make a little quilted table cover. She's got one of my old end tables from my old house in that bedroom. Well, it was in that room. I was using it in there, but since she's now living in that room, she's using it, and she has a lot of stuff on it, and I'd like it to not get ruined. So I'm going to make a quilted table topper for her. And, oh, sorry, gotta reach again. I bought a couple of charm packs, which I think yeah, fabric.com. So they are this is a Robert Kaufman Fabrics charm pack, and it's all these little squares. Here's all the colors. Aren't they pretty? Just so many different colors. And they all have these gold like dots all over them. and I just think they're beautiful. So I did lay them out. It's going to be 5 by 5 squares, and I'm not doing anything fancy because I'm not a quilter and I don't have time to become a quilter. I have done quilting before, but nothing super ornate. So it's just going to be 5 by 5 squares that I'm going to, sew together. And then the fancier part will be in the quilting. I'm going to hand quilt, and I'm going to stitch moon phase shapes as the quilting. That's my mental image of how I'm going to do this. I did order, and I'm waiting for it to come, some metallic embroidery thread to use for that. So I can't do that part yet. And I haven't sewed these together yet either. But I did have the briefest of brief thoughts that I would try doing reverse applique, because I also bought this package of charm squares or charm packs, which is sort of like a batik also, but without the gold. And this isn't Robert Kaufman. This is just, I don't know what this is. It was, I don't know, Sit and Sew blenders, pre-cut blenders, so from fabric.com. But they were the same color family as a lot of these squares, and I thought, well, I could put one of these underneath one of the glittery ones, and then cut out the moon shapes and do the embroidery around it so that you would have the solid one showing. And I think in theory that would be awesome, but I have never done reverse applique, and I didn't think that trying it on a project that has a deadline would be a good idea. So I'm probably not going to do that. However, since I have so many of these squares, because I bought 2 of the Robert Kaufman charm packs because I wasn't sure how many of each color I would need for what I wanted to do. So I bought 2, but I've got a lot of them. So I may just end up doing some other project at some point and playing with that technique. But for right now, it's going to be kept sort of simple. If that can be considered simple. I don't know. Yeah, so that's pretty much the crafting going on right now. Lots of ideas in my head of things I would like to be making, but the mojo's coming back slowly, apparently. What else? Stash Dash. Hey, remember that? I have no idea what my yardage is for Stash Dash at this point. No idea. I haven't tallied it up. I know I was a little over 2,000 yards last time, and now I've done 4 cowls, so that's probably close to 900, a little over 900 yards. Plus that crocheted top and those socks. So I'm probably, I don't know, maybe around 3,500 yards ish. I don't know. It wasn't something that I was really doing hardcore this year anyway. It was more just a way of me keeping track of projects that I was doing over the summer, so I'm not super worried about it, but whatever. And we are still doing the 20 and 20 challenge, so if you're taking part in that, hopefully you're enjoying that. And are you still working from your list? Has your list changed a lot? The lists are locked right now, and they will be until the beginning of the 4th quarter, which will be the first 15 days of October. But you can always be changing your list off Ravelry. And if you're not using Ravelry, you obviously can just have your list personally on your computer or a notebook or whatever, and just work with it from there. Yeah, my list has definitely changed and morphed over the course of the year. There are things I look at on there, and I even created project pages on Ravelry thinking, oh, well, if I have the project pages, I'll remember that I wanted to do them, and I haven't done them yet. I have some weaving projects that I really want to do and finish that were on that list this year, and I have not done any weaving in months now. I haven't done any spinning. I had so much spinning I was going to do this year. That was actually more of a, I've talked about that, a function of the fact that I usually spin out there in the porch room. Bill has taken over the porch room, and that's fine. Now that the deck is done, I keep thinking I'll come out here with my wheel, but I just haven't been in a spinning frame of mind, so I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, yeah, 20 and 20, please take part. We do still have the chatter thread going on in Ravelry. I realize, oh, there's a cardinal. Did you see him? I realize Ravelry is not optimal for everybody right now. I am still trying to think about how to handle that moving forward. But, you know, feel free to leave comments here in the comment section under this video. I'd be happy to talk to you and hear what you're working on. You're limited because you can't put pictures there. Instagram, you can always use Instagram and use the hashtag for the 20 and 20 challenge, or for the monthly makes program if you're doing that. I will put the hashtag for the 20 and 20 challenge down here because I can't remember exactly what it is and I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. But if you're on Instagram and you're taking part, please feel free to tag your 20 and 20 projects there, and that makes you eligible for drawings there as well. You don't have to be on Ravelry. I am definitely going to be looking for other ways to facilitate, you know, knit-alongs and challenges and things for next year that does not require use of Ravelry for a number of reasons. But, you know, most prominently right now, it's the whole accessibility issue. I just want to be really sensitive to that with everybody's needs. And, yeah, so I'll keep you up to date on that as we go. Let's move on to 10%. Basically, I already told you, I am living out on this deck as much as I can because it is amazing and I love being out here. I love being in the fresh air. And, you know, living where we live here in southwestern Pennsylvania, where we have cold, dreary weather so much of the year, like when we have nice weather like this, take advantage of it as much as you can. The garden is still doing really well. Our sunflowers have started to open. Oh, they're so pretty. I'm so excited. I don't know if I have any new footage to share with you or not. If I do, I'll put pictures in or footage in here, but if not, I'll catch you up another time. I've started getting big tomatoes. We have a few that have ripened. They're orange tomatoes. I can't remember the variety name, but we got a few of those. The cherry tomatoes are still coming just in little handfuls, and I know eventually I'm going to go down there and find like 200 cherry tomatoes all ripe at the same time. That'll be interesting. But I just keep them in a bowl on the counter and eat them throughout the day as I pass. They're good. What else? I did pick my first pepper. So this variety is called Big Bertha. I've never had them before, and they get long, like really long, big and long. The tag shows them as green and red. None of mine are turning red. And there's one pepper that's been on there. It was like actually a small pepper when we bought the plants. And now it's just a giant pepper, and it was on there for so long, I finally just picked it because I thought, it's not turning red. It may not turn red until after it's picked. I think that's a thing. I don't know. I don't know my peppers very well. I always used to leave, like regular sweet bell peppers, I would leave on the plants until they turn red or orange or whatever color they were going to turn. But these just don't seem to want to do colors, so I don't know what the deal is. Maybe it's something with the soil? I don't know. If you have any idea why my peppers are not turning red, let me know. And it looks like my beans are making a comeback. I noticed that I'm getting new beans now. They just sort of took a break apparently, but I'm glad I didn't rip the plants out because I'm getting beans again. Still getting zucchini, but thankfully not an unwieldy number. We've been able to eat them as we pick them. We are going to have so many spaghetti squash. It's going to be insane. Like, every time I go down there, I see more, and some of them are already really, really huge. They look like footballs. They're gigantic. But we love spaghetti squash, and we've already figured out that I can store them in our garage, because our garage stays about, I don't know, 50-ish degrees, so they won't freeze, but they'll be cool, and they should stay okay down there. Sorry, I know the sun is like really glaring on me, but I don't want to move again because I'm almost done. Yeah, so that's the garden. What else? House shenanigans. Bill and I painted our one shed this weekend. So the shed looks all nice and pretty. I think that's the last of the major painting that needs to be done. We have some gates that need to be painted, but that's about it. Our trip that I mentioned earlier. Obviously, all of our vacation plans for this year fell through, as pretty much everybody's probably did. We were supposed to go to Ireland back in April. That didn't happen. I was supposed to take my own little motorcycle trip down to visit my mom and then my oldest son, who's in North Carolina. That was going to be in May. That didn't happen. And then I had, other travel associated with work. None of that happened. And then Bill and I were going to do a canoeing trip in August, probably like right around now, up in Maine. That's not happening. But we are going to do a backcountry discovery route motorcycle trip. The BDR, there are several BDR trails around the country, and they've only recently created a couple out here on the East Coast. Most of them are on the east. Most of them are out west. But there's one up in New England, which we're not doing, but the Mid-Atlantic BDR is the one we're going to do. The majority, okay, maybe not the majority, the top half of that trail is, the biggest part of that route is in Pennsylvania. It just goes straight through the center of our state, which is very convenient. So we're going to do that. It'll be 9 days. I sat down yesterday and I figured out all of our camping, because we're going to camp the entire time. That's what makes this nice, because it's backcountry. We won't be around people other than like having to get gas, we'll have to stop at gas stations. And then we're going to mainly stay at state parks. So it'll be nice and distanced. I feel like it's the safest option for doing anything. And this is the only vacation we're going to get. My husband does not relax unless he's away. If he's at home, he's working, even when he's off. So he needs this. He really does. So that's what we're going to do. I'm looking forward to it. I was a little iffy when we were first talking about it just because of the whole virus thing, but the more things progress, we're going to be in areas that have had very, very low COVID numbers. And we live in an area that is also a very low COVID area. So I feel like we're not at a high risk for anything or sharing anything. So I think we're going to be okay. And of course, we're taking precautions and lots of masks and hand sanitizer and everything. So, that's coming up. Not this weekend. Next weekend we'll be leaving. So we will be remote. I don't know how much I'll be able to post on social media pictures and things while we're away, but obviously I'll share with you when we get back. So that is a thing. And then I've got some reading. I told you last time about that Nature's Garden book, Edible Wild Plants by Samuel Thayer. I've been reading that and really enjoying that. I love his writing style. He's very no nonsense and very straightforward, and he's got I think he probably has a very wry sense of humor, or a very dry sense of humor, like if you were talking to him in person. So I've been enjoying reading that book. The other book, actually this isn't a book, but I got this. This is related to gardening. I told you, I've kind of developed a thing for tarot decks and stuff lately. This isn't really a tarot deck, but it is a deck of cards, Wild Medicine Herbal Deck. I think this is one of those things I saw that popped up an ad in social media. I'm like, that's cool. I really like the artwork though. So there are all these plants. Here's yellow dock and yarrow and willow. I'm obviously working from the back of the alphabet. Anyway, the pictures are just beautiful. The artwork, I think, these watercolors that are on here. Valerian. And so you have the artwork on the one side, and then the back has information about it, what it's used for, the plant description, the parts used, historical medical uses, medicinal uses, how to use, and ritual and lore. I just think they're really fun. Obviously, you kind of need to know more about these herbs before you would actually use them. At least I would feel that way. but it's just kind of a fun little primer and something fun to look at and read, and it's like flashcards, you know? So I have those. I've been reading those and looking at those. They're fun. But the other book that I've been reading lately, which again, I have to say I bought this because the illustrations that I could see of it on Amazon just really captured me. It's called Moon Magic by Aurora Kane, a handbook of lunar cycles, lore, and mystical energies. I love the moon. I have always loved the moon. I have a thing for the moon. I love sleeping in moonlight. That might sound weird, but anytime the moon is really bright and it's coming in our window and going across the bed, I try my hardest to like just lay right in its light path. It helps me sleep. I feel energized when I wake up. Conversely, my husband cannot sleep at all if the moon is shining on him at night. He hates it. So he sleeps all the way to the far end of the bed to stay out of its light. And I'm like, moonlight. Anyway, this has just been a really fun little book to read. But like, okay, here, I have to find one of these illustrations to show you. Like, look at that. Isn't that pretty? I just love that. Like, I would totally get a tattoo that looked like that. Anyway, so last night while I was up having insomnia, I was reading this. It's just very interesting. It talks about, different moon phases, like history, different, lore and cultural beliefs related to the moon, herbs that you can use related to the moon if you're into that kind of thing, crystals, gemstones, and then it does get into like moon astrology and tarot and things like that as well. I don't know, it's just really interesting. I told you, Emma and I have both been kind of into reading this kind of stuff, which is fun because it's something that we can do together, just learning about it. I kind of feel like we're back in the way I used to homeschool my kids. Like when they would have an interest in things, I would encourage them to just explore that, and then I would explore it with them. And so that's sort of what I'm doing with her with this stuff. But it just happens to be something that I also find very interesting. So anyway, that's my other book. And I think that's everything for 10%. So we're going to move into shop news now. We are in the third quarter of the monthly makes program as well. So if you are taking part, please make sure you're posting your pictures. Now, that's the one that I can't do another way right now. If you do want to be participating and you can't be on Ravelry, feel free to email me. Email me, fibernymph@gmail.com. If you want to email me the pictures of your projects and the information for them, I will post them in the Ravelry thread for you if you would like me to do that. Because as the moderator, I can post in your thread, or I can otherwise keep track of them for you. I mean, I kind of need them to be posted there just to keep everybody on an even playing field. Again, when I do a program, whether it's monthly makes or whatever I do next year, I'm going to try to find a way to do it so that it does not only have to be on Ravelry. Just working through the logistics of that. Yeah, but if you earned a first half of the year free skein, I am working on trying to get the rest of those dyed up. I did send out the majority of them already, but there's probably a handful yet that I still owe people. They're coming. Be patient. I'll get those out to you really soon. Also, I wanted to clarify something that I talked about last episode when I talked about yarn shortages. First of all, thank you so much to people who have written to me who I owe yarn or who want to place special orders, and you've been so sensitive to the fact that I said I have yarn shortages. I was not implying that I don't have yarn that I can dye for you. I am well stocked right now to accommodate special orders, of a few skeins here and there, which is typically what I get for special orders. If you wanted 25 skeins of something on Bounce, I probably can't do that right now, but that is not something that would really happen too often, so I'm not super worried about it. Fingers crossed I'm going to be able to get more yarn in soon. I have no guarantees. So that was all I was saying. I'm just trying, I've got a decent stock. I planned ahead for this very contingency. And so aside from, I would say Bona Fide is probably the base that I have the least of right now. So like, I'm not going to be putting together serendipity sweater sets with Bona Fide anytime soon, you know. And I did take down a lot of my dye to order listings, not because I don't want to dye things for you, but I don't want to have them up on the site if I don't know that I'll be able to, like if I had a sudden rush on people ordering a whole bunch of stuff, that might be a problem. But if there's something on the site that you would like and you don't see it in a base there that you want, feel free to email me. I would be happy to do a special order for you. There's probably very few... there's very few reasons why I probably wouldn't be able to accommodate special orders. So just ask and I'm happy to do them for you. I am going to be doing a shop update on Saturday, this coming week, the 15th, at 10 a.m. Eastern time. I have some new colorways. I know, I haven't done new colorways in a while and I'm super excited about these. I have a new self-striping. It's not on a blocker, but I'll just show it to you this way. Here it is. How the light's showing this right now. This is called Rain Clouds and Tie-Dye. So this is a 3-stripe colorway with this wide stripe of sort of rain cloud gray, and then these 2 variegated stripes. There's a warm variegated stripe and a cooler variegated stripe. That just really reminded me of tie-dye colors. That's what I was kind of going for with this. And here was my impetus for this colorway. Okay, so story time. Did you ever go to summer camp when you were a kid? Because summer camps aren't really happening this year much. But when you were a kid, did you ever go to summer camp? And like the fun part of summer camp was like being outside and, you know, getting to do all the fun things. But inevitably, a week of summer camp would have at least one rainy day, which kind of puts a damper on everything, no pun intended. I just remember being at summer camp and, you know, when you had that rainy day, even though you might not be able to go swimming or be outside doing things, they usually had, you know, art. At least the camp I went to had art activities. And the building where it happened at the camp I used to go to, it was called the Chrysalis, which I thought was super cool. It was just a fun, artsy, eclectic building. I loved being in there, really brightly painted. And one of the activities that we would do on rainy days, I remember we'd tie-dye. And I just thought that was so much fun because even though it was a gray, rainy day and you couldn't do stuff outside, you could still have fun doing bright colored things. And so, and I gotta say too, people who work at summer camps with kids are just amazing, because they love kids and they know how to keep them enthused and deal with so many issues. I really admire anybody who's ever worked at a summer camp. I've been like a weekly director at summer camps before, and I love working with the counselors as much as the kids. So anyway, that was sort of a sidebar, but anyway. So yeah, rain clouds and tie-dye. So that is the self-striping. Here's what it looks like in the skein. This is knit out of Bounce. This is on Traveler. And I will have it on several bases in stock for the update, the self-striping. Then I thought, you know, these stripes look really cool, and I wonder what they would look like just dyed up on their own skeins. So you know, that's what I had to do. So here we have the bright tie-dye skein. And I know the colors aren't great right now because suddenly the sun is back behind a tree, but the pictures in the shop will do much better justice. But this is the bright one, and I dyed it up on Sunshine, light fingering weight, Fluff, which is my mohair silk, and Poof, which is my slub base. So there will be small quantities of these in stock, and then I'll be happy to dye up more if people want them. I just didn't want to have a ton of these sitting around if, you know, somebody didn't really want them. So this is the warm one, and then here is the cool one, and I gotta say this is probably my favorite. I love these colors. They're so bright. So this one has this bright pinky purple, blue, and then just this bright toxic green in it. Again, on all of those same 3 bases. And then I decided we should have the rain clouds too. So we've got the rain cloud gray on those 3 bases as well. So you could go ahead and if you wanted to put them together in a project, you know, you could do that. Here's what they look like together. Here's what the flips look like together. If you wanted to put all 3 together in a project, you could hold the gray together with one of these, the gray mohair. Anyway, so those will all be in the shop on Saturday. Additionally, I have a whole bunch of color block gradients. You're gonna laugh. I laughed when I realized this. I had a bin down in the studio full of color block gradients that never got reskeined into the balls, which is how I sell them. And I think they were left from when I did my only show this year back in March. And I think I just ran out of time and didn't get to reskein them all. And subsequently, they sort of just got lost in the shuffle and they were there. And I opened this bin up one day. I'm like, what is this? And it's like, oh, it's gradients that have never made it into the shop. So I've got a bunch of gradients that will be going into the shop on Saturday. And then I have a whole bunch of random self-striping colors. Here's what I'm doing. And this relates back to the fact that I'm not doing shows this year. When I, okay, you know, self-striping, I have a whole bunch of different striping patterns that I dye my colorways up on. And so I have probably a dozen bins downstairs in my studio that have yarn already pre-wound into those striping patterns so that when I go to dye things for shows or for the shop or whatever, I can just pull from that inventory. I usually have someone who helps me wind those self-striping patterns so that I constantly have some coming in and I'm not doing them all. But she's not working for me right now because I haven't been doing shows and I don't need more yarn wound because I'm not using what I have. So that is basically what I'm doing in an effort, again, to use my resources as wisely as I can. I've got all these self-striping patterns that are wound, but they were not earmarked for anything specific, so I'm just dyeing them up. And as I dye them up, I will be putting them in the shop. So there will be a bunch of those going into the shop. You know, whichever ones I have finished this time, they'll be in there. I also have a lot of Dyer's Secret Stash. I have not done a Dyer's Secret Stash update in a while. I also have mohair in my eyeball now. Dyer's Secret Stash, if you don't know, is essentially that. It's usually either stuff that I held for myself because I thought I was going to use it for samples or something. This time around, there's not so much of that, but it also is often things that I've dyed but ended up they had like some sort of an anomaly or they weren't quite right, and so I didn't put them in the shop because they were less than perfect. So I have a whole lot of less than perfect things that I'm going to be putting in the shop. Those are always discounted a good bit, so you can be looking for those. There will be a lot of Dyer's Secret Stash in this shop update. So I think that's everything for the shop update. Again, that'll be on Saturday the 15th at 10 a.m. And yeah. And by the way, if you shopped my summer sale this past weekend, thank you so much. I obviously didn't get to advertise it on a podcast because I hadn't recorded, but if you subscribe to my newsletter, which if you don't, I highly recommend you doing that because that's how you find out about things like that in between podcasts. I advertised it in the newsletter and on Instagram, Fiber Nymph Dye Works Instagram account, and on the Facebook page. So those are the 3 best ways to stay in touch and know what's going on in the shop in between podcasts, since I don't podcast nearly as regularly as would be necessary to keep you up to date on things. So anyway, newsletter. I really want to emphasize the newsletter. That is really, really a good way. And I don't send a lot of newsletters out. Usually once a week max would be what you would get from me. I'm going to try to start using my website's blog a little bit more too. I just have to get into a good routine for that. So anyway, I'm just trying to think of new ways to be able to stay in touch with you guys and keep you up to date on what's going on. But anyway, that's everything for this week. I hope you are doing well. I hope you are safe and healthy, and I hope you are enjoying some beautiful summer weather wherever you are. Unless you're in the southern hemisphere, then I hope you're enjoying some late winter weather. Yeah, and I will be back with you after we get back from our trip, so it won't be till early September. But then I can tell you all about our trip, and that'll be fun too. If you have any questions or comments about what I talked about today, I will have some show notes in the drop down. You can leave comments here on the video. You can always email me at fiberamp@gmail.com if you need to get a hold of me for something, especially anything shop oriented. Always email me. I can't guarantee that I will be able to deal with shop stuff through any other communication means. Yeah, so that's it. Have a lovely week, guys, and I'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks. Bye.